My Metal today, and I'm in Chicago at Reggie's here for Legions of Metal. I'm here with Ty Christian, who is most well known as the lead vocalist for Award for the Trident. But actually what we're going to do today is we're actually going to talk about this really cool fest that he's been putting on for quite a few years, called Mad with Power, which is just a month away, believe it or not. So Ty, why don't you first introduce yourself, tell us a little about yourself, and then we'll dive in.
Yep, I am Ty Christian. Like I said, lead vocalist of Lords of the Trident. I also sing for the Sonic the Hedgehog Symphony. I accidentally joined a System of a Down tribute band 2 years ago, and I keep doing that for some reason. But I also run, own, operate, and do all of the things for Mad with Power Fest, which, yes, as you said, is coming up in a month. It's an arcade, pinball, and heavy metal festival in Madison, Wisconsin, and it's super fun. And a lot of people come to it, and I hope a lot of people come to it this year.
Very cool. So let's dig in a little bit. So this is the 9th edition, if I remember correctly.
Yep, 9th year.
So tell me, like, why did you start it? How did it get started? Kind of what motivated you to start your own fest?
Spite. Yeah, actually, there were a number of festivals back in 2013 and 2014, who shall remain nameless, who kind of like dicked us around pretty heavily for, booked us and then forgot, and then they would make promises and then they would kind of renege on those promises, and I just got really frustrated with the state of the music industry and the state of just the festivals that were around. And I said, I'm gonna make a festival where I'm throwing all my favorite things together, and I'm gonna make sure that if I promise something to somebody that I fulfill it, even if it's an accidental drunken promise at some point, which did happen at one point, and damn it, I fulfilled that drunken promise. But it's a festival that is kind of built on this idea that the festival itself can be more than just bands in a room. Kind of taking the approach of having the atmosphere, the vibe, and the kind of ideals of a family gathering, a family reunion, as the leading the leading star of the show. My general idea with this is I feel like anybody can put bands in a room together.
Yep.
It's hard, but it's not impossible. But that's not why I go to festivals like Legions of Metal here. I go to hang out with people that I only get to see once a year, right? And give them a hug in real life, where I get to meet my internet friends. And so I kind of use that as the prevailing aspect of Mad with Power Fest. It's what if we create a festival based around that experience?
No, that's super cool. Actually, I'm completely unscripted here. I'm going to actually give an anecdote that kind of supports that.
Mm-hmm.
So this will be my 3rd year in a row going. My first year, I don't know if you remember or not, but I had just had knee surgery, so I was actually on crutches when I came to Mad with Power, and met a lot of people, had a great time. I had the VIP, so I ended up sitting the whole time, which is not my style. You know me, I'm always right on the rail, and I couldn't be on the rail that year, and my son was with me. And last year when I went, I lost count of the number of people that would see me and say, "Oh, how's your knee doing?" I'm like, do I know this person? It was wild. People remembered me as the guy on crutches. And then the really funny story, and she's going to be embarrassed but she's now going to be a part of the video. So Miss Allie Decker, who I know you know very well.
Yes. Yep.
She did a little kind of pizza thing last year with a bunch of people that she knew, and I was invited to that, so I went to that. And somehow we were talking during that, and she connected the dots and said, "Wait a minute, you were the guy on crutches? That must have sucked." And so it was really fun. But it's what you said, kind of that family atmosphere, the community.
Yeah.
I felt it, and I'm relatively new the last few years to kind of that part of the scene.
Yeah. Yep, and that's. I'm glad that is the experience that you had, and that we've seen a lot of people who have had not similar experiences with the crutches, but similar experiences with finding friends kind of organically. And that's what a lot of the festival, outside of the music, a lot of the things that we provide at the festival is set up to do. The arcade games, the pinball, besides the fact that I just like arcade games and pinball, it's a natural thing to, walk up to a game and, start a 2-player game with somebody, and make friends, or try to beat somebody's score in pinball, or, in between the festival days, going to the cheese curd, massacre, or going to the pre-party, and just hanging out and having an opportunity to just talk to people, meet people organically. We've had a lot of people that have become best friends. People who've moved in together, after going to Mad with Power Fest. So I think fostering that community is a really important aspect, and kind of the primary goal of Mad with Power Fest in general.
That's cool, and I know I've met quite a few friends already. Who I've now connected on Instagram. We talk regularly. Who I met at Mad with Power.
Mm-hmm.
So it's super exciting. But I'll be seeing one of them tonight at Legion's. So
Heck yeah,
that'll be really cool. All right, so nine editions so far, or just about 8, almost 9. We're gonna leave last year out just for a second because we know it was a unusual.
It's a tough year.
So taking 8 out of the equation, is one of the first 7 more memorable than the rest, and why?
6.
Why?
Oh, easily. 6 was the jump from. So when I had planned this whole thing out, my goal from the get-go was to start very small and mindfully move larger and larger and larger. And the ultimate goal was to get into the Sylvie.
Okay.
That was, okay, once I'm here, I don't need to go any larger. This is as large as I want it to be.
Yep.
And that was the year that we not only was the first year in the Sylvie, so it was me, my hair just falling out because I had no idea what we were doing. When you do something at a venue for so many years, you're like, okay, I know how the loading goes, I know how this goes, I know how many arcade machines we can fit. No problem, I got this. I can do this in my sleep. And then you move into a completely different space, and you're like, okay, So that was that year. But it was also the year that the year that we sold out the Sylvie, and became the biggest power metal festival in the United States that year. So that
even bigger than Prague Power.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. Yeah. Prague Power caps out at 1,100, and we had 1,534 tickets sold, but I'm not counting. Who's counting?
Wow. That's actually pretty impressive.
So that was the year that we became the biggest in the United States, and so
who was the headliner that year?
Unleash the Archers.
It was on the UTA. Okay, I thought so.
Friday night was Seven Spires. Saturday night was Unleash the Archers. So it was like all the buds were in the same room, and it was perfect. So
that's the year I wanted to be there.
Yeah,
it was.
That was
1 year too late.
That was an incredible year. So that's the one that really sticks out, just because of the newness of it, all of the stress and work and all that sort of stuff actually paying off. And I think it wasn't right after COVID, but it was slightly after when people were starting to go out again and feel safe going out again. And so I felt like for a lot of people it was really like a collective sort of yeah, we're back. I get to see my people again. I feel generally somewhat safe again. Everybody's got the vaccine at this point. So it's it was a nice celebration of the community and of the people who were getting together and having that kind of cathartic experience. Myself included.
Yeah. And if I recall correctly, I believe it was the second single that UTA released off of Phantoma, featured footage from that Mad with Power performance. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's where they debuted it. It was Ghost in the Mist.
Yes.
And and I shot some video for the music video, and I edited the music video for them. So
very cool.
Yep, shot and edited a lot of it, and some of it was done by a second photographer on some other shows. But yeah, I put that together, and I was very, very, very proud of that.
Oh, that's awesome. It was a great video and one of my favorite songs off that album.
Yeah, it was a really good one.
Fabulous
really good
song.
one.
Well, cool. Well, you hinted at my next question, which is kind of cool, but I'm going to tease on it a little bit more. So, why the Sylvie specifically? And I'll be the first to say it's awesome.
Yep.
I love the Sylvie. Well, why the Sylvie?
The Sylvie is it was brand new in, I want to say, 2019.
Oh, okay.
And it was built because Madison has a lot of mid-sized venues, what I'd say, like 500-600 cap. But we don't. And then we have very large venues. We've got the Alliant Energy Center, which is a Coliseum, but there wasn't a ton of medium-high sized venues. You know what I mean? And the group that we were working with in town, Frank Productions, they built that space, and it was great because it's brand new, so all the tech in there is brand new, and it has all of the modern amenities that most bands who would play a room of that size would expect.
Yep.
And there's really nice green rooms, there's really nice rigging and lighting and all that sort of stuff. There's not a lot of jank of years of the stage being broken or whatever that you get in some other venues. And I think also just the general size of it. The max capacity of the Sylvie if I remember correctly, is 2,500.
Okay.
And I specifically like stopped selling tickets at 1,500 tickets. So it's, you know, because I've been to Prague Power, I've been to many of these festivals. What I don't want, and I've also been to the Sylvie at 2,500 people.
Yeah.
And what I don't want Mad to Power with Power Fest to feel like is like this.
Right.
You know, like, I need to get a beer. Hold on, I'll just be right. You know, I don't want it to feel like that. I want most people to be able to go like this and have a fun time. You know.
There we go.
A little bit of personal space. So, you know, so it was, you know, roughly the same size as Prague Power. You know, Prague Power is 1,100, we're 1,500. It gives us a little bit more breathing room, and you know, since we're working with a local company who owns the place, you know, they understand us, they understand the intention of the fest,
Yep.
and we are able to do things that maybe like a tour might not be able to do. Like, for instance, you know, with our VIP packages above gold, we can offer like free food, and we can offer, you know, special, you know, the sponsors have special box seats that normally they would not like just sell to anybody. You know, like, these are kind of things that you have to, that companies rent out and stuff like that.
Yep.
So we're able to kind of create a unique experience by working with the Frank Productions people, with the Frank Productions people, and with the Sylvie. Yeah, so creating that kind of unique experience is something that only doing it at the Sylvie is able to do.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, that makes a lot of sense, and it's a killer venue. If you haven't been to the venue, it's actually one of the nicest venues I've been to in a long time. I love going there.
The bands are also every year. They see the green rooms. They're like, you know. And we have showers. Oh, and we have like a lounge that's separate from the green rooms. It's so nice. It's so nice. Yeah. So I love it. You know.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Well, I promised we would get to it. So now we're going to talk about last year's edition.
Yeah.
You know, and of course, Mad with Power wasn't the only fest that had problems. I know Glenn ranted and raved about it from a Prague Power standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Other fests had similar problems. I mean,
Yep.
we all had problems, and I'm not going to make this political at all, but I do want to know, like, obviously for you, it was really frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you lost money for the first time, which they
Yeah.
thankfully got rectified. But
Mm-hmm.
I know my feeling is, and you kind of hinted at it, that you were really on the fence on, hey, am I going to do this again? And so I'd love to know, like, what was going through your head at the time, and you know, what ultimately caused you to say, yes, we're actually going to keep this thing going?
Yeah. So you know, we ended up going. So like, we had a good year great year in 2023, good year in 2024. Talking with the Frank Productions people, I said, you know, I really want to bring in some of these bands. There's a lot of visas involved. It's a lot of expense. I don't know. And their response was, they said, go big. We've got your back, because we're like 50-50 business partners in this, right?
Yep.
So like, go big. We got your back. And so I'm like, all right. I went big, and I got half of the bands needing visas. And you know, and due to mostly the Doge cuts, they were unable to. We'd completed and gotten all of their visas accepted. Everybody had fully accepted visas. The last step is you have to go to the embassy, and they have to like stamp it into your passport.
Yep.
And one embassy shut down for an entire month. One embassy got axed to one person doing all the visas for the entire country. So you know, we lost a couple bands, and each visa request, you know, because we have to expedite all of them now, each visa request ends up being around $8,000. And so that year we lost 2 bands, and we lost $16,000 that year. And you know, it was coming down to the wire in terms of like, we were looking at the ticket sales and all that sort of stuff. Another really interesting thing is, since 2003, industry-wide, pre-sales of tickets have been absolutely in the toilet. You know, previously we could sell out an entire venue months in advance and say Mad Power sold out. From 2004 onwards, it was sort of like, you know, you get a little trickle of tickets, and then the last 2 weeks, it just all of a sudden you sell 200, 300 tickets. So it makes it really difficult to plan, and it makes it really difficult to wonder if you're going to break even or not. You know, which we always have, except for that, you know, last year. And so, you know, we had some money in the bank, but we were kind of looking at this and saying, you know, do we have the amount of money in the bank to cover all of this and to properly plan for next year?
Right.
And so we ended up losing a bunch of money. I was kind of on the fence of like, do we take a break? Do we see if things improve? And within 48 hours, the community had donated the $16,000 that we had lost. And so that was a clear sign to me of like, well, all right, I'm okay. The only issue with that was that put us probably like 6 to 8 months behind schedule.
Yeah.
Because I usually book about a year and a half in advance. And and so it really has felt like no break at all for me. Yeah. Like I have been working since the end, since 2 days after Madison Power 8, I have been working nonstop to put on Madison Power 9 this year. And now, I'm currently in the process of booking Madison Power 10. So, so I cannot wait for a break. It'll be really, really nice. But a lot of the decision on whether to do it or not was based on everybody stepping up and just donating all the money, and I was like, well, now I gotta, So, and obviously that is not like a business direction that I want Madison Power to go in. I don't want us to lose money every year and have to have people donate to keep it going. And I'm very proud to say that until last year, we really hadn't ever lost money, ever. And so that that's kind of some a little feather in my cap that unfortunately got plucked out last year. But I think this year we're on a good trajectory. I feel very confident that we're going to break even this year. I want to continue to bring in more bands from overseas and from outside of the United States, while of course highlighting the bands that we have here in the U.S. But it's difficult with the costs involved in doing the visas. We are one of the only countries in the entire world where the visa process is this crazy. Yes. Lords of the Trident went to Japan in 2024, and we ended up finding out we needed visas like late, and so we rushed the whole process. We had our visas done for the entire band within a month, and it costs the entire band a grand total of like $500.
Wow.
Whereas the application to ask if we can possibly have a visa maybe is $8,000 and non-refundable if they say no. Wow. So you basically have to go through a law firm, and you have to make sure that you cross all the T's and dot all the lowercase J's, because otherwise it was much harder than we'd experienced in the past. There was a lot more back and forth with the lawyers, needing additional things. It was kind of akin to when we tried to bring Bright Ear over last year, where there was a lot of additional paperwork that needed to happen. So it was definitely harder than most bands. That being said, I'm happy to report that the visas are all approved, and everybody in the band has got their interviews at the embassies, and most of them have them done already. So it's looking like full speed ahead with that. What was the impetus to bring them? I like Dragonland's music a lot, and honestly, they like cold called me.
Oh wow!
Yeah, they kind of reached out and was like, "Yo, we heard about Madison Power Fest from this band and this band and this band that played in 2025," and they were like, "We hear this is a great festival. Everybody says you get treated super well, and it's like one of the nicest stages they've ever played." And blah blah. And I'm like, oh,
how cool is that?
Well, thank you. And they're like, "Hey, have you ever got a spot for us?" And at first, when we were going through the initial lineup, I was kind of like, "Ooh, I don't know," because we had a couple of other bands from overseas that we were looking at. But then when things solidified more, we actually had room for them, and so I just emailed them back and said, "Hey, man, yeah, let's do it." It's kind of akin to, also very funny, it's kind of akin to how I met Helsat.
Okay.
My wife and I were flying over to Helsinki just for a vacation. We have some friends who live over there. And like, when you're like on public transit, right, or on a plane or something, and you're like sitting down, you're looking around at the people, and you like see the metal guy.
Yes.
And you're like, oh, I gotta talk to that guy. I'm gonna talk to that guy right over there. I'm gonna talk to him. So we're sitting on the plane, and it's one of those planes where it's like, a couple seats here, one big giant row, a couple seats here. Heidi and I were over here, and we were, in the middle of the plane, and we were just kind of looking around, and I see a bunch of dudes like walking in with 70K sweatshirts and like, and Nightwish stuff, and I was like, I'm gonna talk to those guys. Once we get off the plane, I'm gonna go talk to those guys. And then I saw a dude with like kick pedals, like drums, And I was like, oh shit, it's a band. Oh fuck, you know. And so like we get off the plane, and I'm like, hey, hurry up, you know. We're like running through, like we're, you know, scooting around people, right? We get through customs, and then we run into them in the Helsinki airport in like a little area where there's couches. And I walked up to him like, hey, what band are you? And the guy's like, what? I was like, what band are you? You know? And he, oh, Hellsat. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. You know, and I was like, that sounds really familiar. So I'm walking away, and I look them up on Facebook, and their booking agent was my booking agent, you know? And I was like,
wow.
oh, you know, I run back. I'm like, you guys are on Continental? I'm on Continental. They're like, wait, who are you? And I was like, oh, Ty from Lords of the Trident. And they're like, oh, shit, no, oh my God. You know, so we started talking, and they're like, we've been trying to play Madison Power Fest. I'm like, oh, okay. So hot tip out there to bands, if you want to play Madison Power Fest, make sure to catch me in the Helsinki airport, and it's almost a guarantee. You know, as long as if you're good and you're in the Helsinki airport, you got it. So, you know, just wait there.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, well, one final question, and you did touch on it at the beginning, but, you know, what most people, if they go to a fest, they have maybe money for one fest a year. And
Yep.
so they have to make a decision, okay, what fest do I go to? I have to factor in potentially hotel, airfare, food, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously, I'm a personal believer that, as you are, of course, that Madison Power is a really great choice for that. And you talked about the community aspect before, but for the people who maybe have never been to Madison Power before, and they're trying to make the decision on, like, do I buy a ticket for a month from now to come to this festival? What would you tell them? Why should they come? What should they expect that's different?
Yeah, I would say Madison Power Festival has a vibe that is, it's a little hard to describe using words, but it has a vibe that is different than any other festival that I've been to. And I think the vibe is more like welcoming, opening, you know, an open vibe, a place where you can essentially walk in and know nobody and leave and, you know, suddenly be best friends with like 10 people.
Yes.
You know, and you know, like I said earlier, we've specifically kind of engineered the festival to make that happen organically. You know, a festival like Legions of Metal or Prague Power or, you know, other festivals that you go to, they may or may not be intentional about those, about, you know, fostering those connections. It may be more focused on the music. I'll be the first one to say that Madison Power Fest, the music, at least for me, is like kind of secondary.
Right.
I love, don't get me wrong, I'm in a band. I love watching bands. Live music is great. But, you know, it is ultimately, it is the people and the connections that you make at the festival and through music that is the more important thing. You know, you can go buy a ticket and go see Dragon Force wherever, but if you come to Madison Power Fest and, you know, Dragon Force is playing, I guarantee you're going to leave with a community that you will be a part of, that you'll be able to, you know, become friends with and continue to talk to and that kind of stuff. So, you know, for me, it really is about fostering that connection and creating a place where people feel, you know, safe, people feel accepted, and people feel like they can come and, you know, just hang with their friends. Oh, and also there's music, you know. So if you're looking for, you know, making those sort of lifelong connections with people, creating new friendships, and, you know, going to a place where you feel safe, relaxed, you know, and you're hanging around like people who want to hang around with you, Madison Power Fest is the place to go, for sure.
Very cool. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today. It's so fun to talk about this. And for those of you watching, I highly recommend that you buy a ticket to come to Madison Power. It happens June 4th or June 5th?
5th and 6th.
Yes, I'm thinking 1st and 7th is the
first weekend of June.
Yes, first weekend of June.
Yeah.
Pre-party's the night of the 4th. The festival is the 5th and the 6th, and it's a blast. You know, there's even a cheese curd massacre. I mean, that alone should be a reason for you to come. Like, it's amazing.
Yeah.
You know, you'll never have better cheese curds in your entire life.
If you've ever gone to a festival and you've gone to a 2 or 3 day festival and you're like, what do I do between the days of the festival? We have you covered. You're going to meet up with a bunch of metalheads at the second biggest farmers market in the entire country, and you're going to bring some cash, and you're going to try to sell out every single cheese curd stand on the farmers market. You know?
And it's delicious, let me tell you.
Fresh cheese curds made that morning, and the first couple of years, we completely sold the entire farmers market out. they didn't know what hit them. All of a sudden, there was like 300 metalheads with like, "Give me cheese curds!" Yeah, you know, everybody's like, "Yeah," holding bags and boom boxes blasting Judas Priest and Blind Guardian and stuff like that. Now they follow our Instagram, so on the weekend of Madison Power Fest, I have been told that they quintuple the amount of cheese curds that they make for that specific day.
That's awesome.
So that we can't sell them out. So
Yeah, they always seem to have a lot available on that day.
they have so much more than usual. So, you know, so much more than usual. Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, again, thank you so much for your time, and you know, come to the festival. It's gonna be awesome.
It was also
Intermission.
No more train.
no more train.
Go good.